Hey guys, how are you? This is Nina Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Thank you for being here. You know, I love to discuss real life topics to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. And so I go around the planet trying to find the best people I can find to bring on here for you. And today I found Ryan Shekell. So he was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at the age of 18, and he was told that an average lifespan of people with this condition lasts about 35 years and probably would never become a biological father. So he has proven all of them wrong. And that's why I'm glad he is here so he could talk to us about that. So how are you, Ryan? How you doing?
I am doing great, and I'm so excited to be here, Nina.
Good. I'm glad you're here too. I really am. And this is going to be a very good conversation because I think that people get a lot of doom and gloom, and there's other ways of looking at this. So, Ryan, first, before I go on to all of your amazing story, I do want to know a little bit more about you. So, I always ask, who is Ryan? Who is Ryan? Tell us a little bit about you.
Interesting stat, there's only 70,000 people in the world that are
Wow.
alive with cystic fibrosis. So it's crazy. It's such a rare condition.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I've only talked to a handful of people in the world that have had cystic fibrosis.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
but my story, and I think you'd hear this from a lot of people that have cystic fibrosis or that have any other disease that may affect the quality or length of their life, is that I'm not that much different than anyone else.
Right.
I'm really not. The biggest thing for me is to relate to people that I talk to and say, "Have you ever been told you can't do something?" And Nina, I'm curious to know with you, I mean, when was the last time someone told you you couldn't do something?
Yeah. They have said that a lot actually in my lifetime. So I get that.
I believe it. It's common.
Yeah.
Everyone hears it.
Yeah.
Everyone hears it. So when I was 18 years old, I was a senior in high school. I was getting ready to go to college, and I was told by a doctor that I was being diagnosed with a disease that I would live to be 30. The average
Wow,
lifespan
wow.
of cystic fibrosis was 30 at the time that I was diagnosed, and this was 18 or 19 years ago now. And that's scary for a high
Yeah.
schooler. And I can walk you back even further than that. I mean, I grew up in a very idyllic childhood in a suburban area in upstate New York. And, everything seemed to me to be normal. And I think it's the upbringing that a lot of people have is you don't know anything different because it's the life that you were born into.
Right.
Um, I was skinny. I would run out of breath every now and then, but other than that, I lived a very idyllic childhood. I had a brother, I had parents, I had a dog, I had friends, I went to school. It wasn't anything crazy to me. And then at 18 years old, everything kind of got flipped upside down with this
Yeah.
realization that I had a disease that I was going to have to manage for the rest of my life. And realistically, that was the first time I was really told I couldn't do something. And it was a big revelation that not only could I not do something specific, but I likely couldn't live
Right.
after the age of 30, 35 years old.
Which isn't far from 18,
No,
So
no,
like
it's not.
that is so scary. That's a lot of news to hit a young man with. That's a lot. That's a lot. So what was your mindset or your thought process after that diagnosis? Because I'm sure that everybody has a different path on how they take that, but that's a really hard thing to hear. It's almost like a friend of mine who heard she had cancer. Saying, it's that
Mm.
whoa, like, well, wait a second. How do you handle that at 18? What was your like reaction or thought process?
Yeah, I had supportive parents that had told me from a very young age that I could do anything I put my mind to. And I grew up doing a lot of things that came easy to me, that gave me a lot of confidence.
Mm,
So I don't know if it was just being 18 and naive and not necessarily really feeling sick. Like I didn't feel
mhm,
at 18
mhm.
years old that I was sick. I obviously had gone to a doctor because I had a hard time breathing, which was difficult. And the doctor at the time said, this is something. She was fresh out of medical school, and she had recently learned about cystic fibrosis, and she said, "Okay, well, why don't we test for this?" But I think at 18 years old, I'd love to say that I had this life-changing revelation, and it
Right.
changed the whole outlook that I had on everything, and I had gratitude, and it is and it isn't because it came into my awareness. Um,
Mm,
but I think at that age, and almost at any age, when you get news like that, all you can do is take it one step at a time.
yeah.
And that's what I did. And I tried to kind of block out of my mind that, yeah, I may only have what, 12 years left at this point?
Right.
I'm 18,
Right.
12 years brings me to 30. So it was shocking. I
Yeah.
cried. It was emotional. Um, but I also knew that I just had to take it one step at a time.
Right.
And I think anyone that's facing something challenging, if they can block out the distant future and just think about that first step, man, how empowering is that? Like
Yeah.
what a great opportunity to say, I don't know what this is gonna do to me, but all I know is that I have to go to the hospital, I have to get medication, I have to change the way I'm living my life in terms of the daily habits.
Mhm.
I now take 7 pills with everything I eat. Well, that's a change.
Right.
I had to do lung therapy every day. I had to use a nebulizer. I had to take medication. I had to work a doctor's appointment into my life every 3 months.
Wow.
So, it was changing the way that I live my life daily, but just taking that first step and saying, I'm going to go to the hospital. I'm going to get as well as I can right now, and
Mhm.
then what happens in the future, I guess, at 18, you kind of think you're invincible. And I did.
Right.
I didn't really believe that it was something that was going to take me down.
That probably served you well too, right? Because, it didn't, you didn't spin into a deep depression or did you? Did you go through a season where you were depressed through about this?
So I would say depression leaks in um, just occasionally when maybe you realize the severity of what's going on. I
Hmm.
didn't fall into a deep depression by any means.
Good.
I like to think that I have this interesting quality that maybe I was born with called delusional optimism,
Right.
and it's
That's great.
regardless of what anyone tells
Right.
me I can or can't do, I'm going to remain optimistic that I at least have control
Mm.
of my life and my outcome, even in the face of overwhelming, maybe even scientific evidence, such as disease like cystic fibrosis.
Right, right. You know what's very interesting as I'm listening to you is that the taking the now is so important for you, Ryan, and people who are going through a very strong diagnosis that they feel can be or is terminal. Right? Because
Yeah,
most of us who are coaches or leaders or whatever, we always tell people to look long term, right?
yeah.
Look at the end goal. Look 5 years from now, look 10 years from. What are you going to do today for 5 years from now? And your perspective is so refreshing and different, right? Because it's like no, no, let's look at today because today is all we have, right? So I always say like today's all we're promised. I don't know what later's going to bring or tomorrow. So it's kind of like the same thing you're saying, but I also think about the long term. But that must be a little scary when you've been diagnosed with something that long term isn't so long term, right?
That's a really good observation, and I will say the times that I have had concern or maybe allowed some depression to creep into my thoughts is oftentimes thinking long term.
Mm,
Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, and it's
right.
very important to take one step at a time. But I think
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about, Nina, is so true. I feel like you have to align your daily habits and rituals, and that first step, you do have to align it with the mission that you have for your life. And that
Mm-hmm.
sounds like
Mm-hmm.
grandiose, and it sounds to some maybe overwhelming, and it sounds like a lot. But at least understand who you are,
Yeah.
right? And I understood at 18 pretty much nothing, but I
Right.
did have some ideas of like maybe where I wanted my life to be like.
Mm,
I go back to, yeah, like I had two parents that were loving and cared for me, and they gave me a beautiful childhood. Well, I wanted to do that. I wanted to
right.
give that to the kids that I wanted to have. I loved my parents. I loved my brother. I loved my friends.
Right.
Well, I wanted to essentially become like my parents. I wanted to have a loving family. I enjoyed my childhood, so I wanted to give that to the next generation.
Mhm.
And when I understood that that was a goal, but when I thought about my situation, understanding that 99% of men with cystic fibrosis have this aspect called absence of the vas deferens, which renders you infertile in a way. Um,
Okay.
it was going to be difficult to have biological children. So,
Mm.
I understood that there was a long term goal. I just didn't know how to reach it, but I did know that taking it a step at a time was going to be the best way to do it.
Did you ever feel like you had to try to cram everything in that you wanted to do before 30? Did that thought ever cross your mind?
So it did for sure, and like I said, this delusional optimist mindset that I feel like I have, even though I was told 30, I didn't truly believe it.
Mm. Good.
And just to kind of give you some context as well, like I wasn't a sick 18-year-old in the grand scheme of things. I was
Right.
actually when I was diagnosed, I was committed to go to play collegiate baseball. And I ended up going on to play baseball in college.
Oh.
And so I wasn't like this sickly kid. I felt healthy. I felt good. I
Mhm.
felt energetic. Um, in retrospect, when I was diagnosed, I think I had 50% lung function, and immediately upon
Wow.
getting medication, it jumped up to about 70%. So, I was breathing like a chronic smoker over the 20, 30 years. I just didn't
Mhm.
feel that way because it was how I always felt.
Right.
So I never felt like I had to cram my entire life in before 30. But I always had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to live every day like it was my last day.
Mm.
And there was a lot of days that I didn't do anything that I feel like had that perspective.
Right.
But I think looking back now, when you hit 30 and you hit 35,
Yeah, I was gonna
you
ask you
do
that.
say, okay, well, yeah, now I'm playing with house money. Like I've already surpassed the timeline
Right.
they gave me, and
Yeah.
that's a powerful perspective.
Yeah.
Because now
That
it's
must
like
have been
I didn't expect to
huge.
have this. Yeah.
That sounds huge. I mean, I was just thinking that as you were going there, like, what was that 30th birthday like? Did you I mean, that must have been like, wow, right? Because you got up the day after you're 30. You
Yeah.
already won, right? Did you were you, like, anxious about 30? Were you ever, like, thinking about 30? Like, 30's what she said or he said. That must have been, like, the best birthday ever. Did you celebrate it?
It's funny? Not really. I so for whatever reason, when the doctors told me 30, I just thought 60. I was
Right.
like, they told me 30, I at least got to 60, and
Right,
for no
right,
reason at all. Like, it was irrational in a way.
right.
So 30, no, I didn't celebrate it like that. I honestly did. It was just another day, and I feel that way about birthdays, in general. Like, I kind of like, birthdays, they are what
R
they are.
right.
I actually it's funny, I've never talked about this on another podcast, but I have this philosophy and this joke, and it actually came from Adam Carolla, of all people, the comedian, podcaster,
Mhm.
host of the Man Show, and he used to talk about. And this was like early in my 20s when I heard this, and I just laughed at it. So I worked in a sales company doing medical sales, and I built a team, and it was a successful team. We could talk about that as well. But I always had this philosophy. There was a group text chain that would always go around, and it was the whole company. And someone, inevitably, it was usually our HR person or our
Mhm.
office manager, would say, "Oh, it's Jeff's birthday today. Happy birthday, Jeff." And then,
Right.
20, 30 other people would chime in, "Happy birthday, Jeff. Good job. We love you." And it was, I was always like a happy person, but I loved sending a text to that person within this giant text chain saying, "We don't celebrate birthdays here, we celebrate quota." And it was
Right.
always this thing of like, you didn't earn your birthday.
Right.
Celebrate something you earned. So I always had that feeling about birthdays. I don't think it has anything to do with cystic fibrosis, but it does go to
Right.
my mindset of like, look, it doesn't count if you didn't earn it, you
Right.
know? So, no, 30 wasn't anything special
Oh,
for
that's
me.
funny. That's funny. But you're dad now, right? So you
I
became a
am.
father, is that right? Biologically?
I did, yeah, and
Wow.
this is great because, like I said, I wanted to become a dad. It was a goal of mine. It wasn't anything like, I wasn't 18 years old saying, "Oh, but I got to be a dad." But it was the one thing when I was diagnosed that kind of really hit me hard because it seems so tangible. Like death
Mm,
to an
mm.
18-year old is kind of like that's not going to happen, right?
Right,
But when a
right.
doctor says, we're going to follow up with a blood test, and we're also going to follow up with a semen test to see if you can have kids. And I'm 18 years old, and I knew at 18 through taking that test that I wasn't going to be able to conventionally have my own children. And for whatever reason, that just seemed more tangible. It seemed more real to
Yeah.
me, and that
Mhm.
really hurt. Like I don't
Mhm.
know if it was aligning my masculinity with it. I don't think that's what it was, but it was just this tangible thing of, well, no, you can't have kids. So
Right.
I got married to the love of my life at 23 years old. I got married pretty early, and she was really understanding of the situation I was in,
Mhm.
and we ended up understanding that it was not going to be a conventional way to have children, but there was still ways to have children. You could
Mhm.
adopt, and she did her research, and we learned a lot about IVF,
Mhm.
and I was able to
That's awesome.
have biopsies and be able to use my sperm to have children. So we started the IVF process pretty early. I was 25 years old, and then it took a lot of time. It took a lot of processes. It was heart wrenching. It was
Yeah, I
emotional.
bet.
It was
Mhm.
traumatic. But the greatest thing we've ever done in my life. And at 28, I had my first son,
Oh,
and that
cool.
was powerful. And then at 30, I had my second, all through IVF, and it was that to me. Those were the happiest days really in my
Yeah.
life was
See,
having my
now
boys.
birthdays matter, huh, Ryan?
They do. Now birthdays matter.
Different
They
pers
still need to earn something, but yeah, birthdays matter. So
That's funny. Yeah, because I mean, there's a change that happens, right, when you have a child.
yes,
There's like a love you never thought you had that explodes inside of you. You can't even imagine how that feels unless you have a child. And
yes.
so I'm really grateful that you had 2. That's amazing, Ryan. That's really great. That's great.
Yeah,
2
it's really
boys? 2
cool.
boys?
Two boys, and
Yeah.
it's funny you say that that's a love you didn't realize you had inside of you because I thought this as well. I was like, man, like I love my life, I love my friends, I love my wife, and then having that first kid, I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, there's a section of your heart
Oh,
that just you didn't
a whole
even know
'nother
about.
level. Right.
And I remember having my second kid and being worried, like, man, I don't think I have the capacity for love in my heart that I can give to another kid because
Yeah.
I
I
loved
went
my
through that.
first one so much. And then the second that that kid is born, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I unlocked another section of my heart." Like,
Right.
there's so much love available. I couldn't believe it. It was
Right.
shocking to me.
Right. Me too. I was actually concerned because I was pregnant with my second I have 2 boys, and I was second with pregnant with my second one. I thought the same thing, Ryan. "Oh, no. I don't know if I have enough love. I mean, I wanna love it so much." It's a like a miracle. Like, you have the
Yes.
second child, it's the same, if not the higher intensity of love that you feel for your kids is just an incredible feeling. So, I'm really, really grateful to the world, the universe, God, that you got to really experience that. That wasn't stolen
Yeah.
from you. That wasn't
Yeah.
stolen from you. That's awesome. So tell me, Ryan, now you're here.
Mhm.
You look well. You're alive. You're a dad. What else do we got going on? What else do you do?
Yeah, so I've thought long and hard about. I think you get to a certain point in your life, and I'd love to say that it was at 18. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was probably more recently. I don't know if it was 30 or not. It was right around 30 though. So you do ask about like that 30th birthday, and I think that there's like a shift in your mind that
Yeah.
happens kind of when you surpass an expectation, maybe. Um, but I read this book about Finding Your Why, Simon Sinek, and
Mhm.
my wife's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, you mentioned that stupid book again." But I do believe that you have to have a purpose or a just cause in your life to kind of align the way you want to go.
Mhm.
And I read this book and I said, you know what, I'm going to make a purpose statement or a mission statement or a just cause. And I've tried to, since I did this right around 30, try to kind of live my life in a way that was aligned with this purpose. And the purpose that I have, I believe, in my life is I aim to build a world in which every individual sees themselves as the hero of their own story,
Mm.
has the courage to turn that story into reality, and the confidence to share that story with the world. And I may
That's
have said that
awesome.
wrong, but that's really the purpose that I feel like in my life. And you know, I wondered how to do it, and that's going to be a constant struggle, I think, forever, is trying to align my daily habits, my daily actions, what I'm doing as a career, everything with this purpose. And
Right.
I work currently as a consultant in the healthcare space, helping young reps and managers to be the best they could be in their career, to build their career in medical sales the same way that I was able to.
Mhm.
And I've also started a podcast, the Every Breath Counts podcast, to try to give hope, to try to give
That's a
gratitude,
good
to try to
title.
give just help individuals, businesses, entrepreneurs be the best they could be. I like to use the word optimize, but just
Mm.
take themselves to the next level, and oftentimes to a level that they didn't know that they had. Similar to how I'm living past 30, 35.
Mhm.
It's a level that I didn't know that I had, and I think that we all have this opportunity to be great. And I think it's inside of us, and I think that there are keys to unlocking it.
Wow. That's really great. And I like that you're using it in that space too. Sometimes I used to be in medical for a while. I was a medical
Yeah.
assistant and ultrasound technician for 15 years.
Oh, okay.
And so the medical space is near and dear to my heart. It's great though that you're pouring in that way. Do you find that so it sounds to me like you're not just leading them, you're like coaching them through as well. Is that something that you do in your life as well? Like, are you coaching people or using your podcast to reach a broader audience?
I have said from the beginning, I don't want to coach. It's not something that I'm passionate about, and if I'm not
Right,
passionate about it, I'm not
right,
going to really waste my time doing it.
right,
I feel like it's a disservice. I think the coaching career is great. I think that people really look to others for guidance. I think they look to others for inspiration. I think they look to others for a framework and a blueprint. And look, I don't have it. I don't have a
right.
framework or a blueprint. What I do have the ability to inspire. I have the ability to motivate. And I
That's
think
awesome.
through conversation and through management, I understand what it takes to help people get past struggles and get past adversity, and to really advance themselves in certain ways. And maybe you can consider it coaching. I don't have a coaching business,
Right.
but I do feel like when you look at someone that inspires and motivates you, um, I think that you can pull what you need from their story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's important, because I don't want to tell someone what to do. But what I do want to do is I want to share stories of people
Yeah.
who have been in a situation that others are in now. And I
Right.
think storytelling is so important
So
in
powerful.
our culture,
Mhm.
just in life. And I think without being told what you need to do, I think you can pull the lessons that you need from someone else's story. And I think that's really powerful. And that's what my podcast does, is it shares stories of people that have been through adversity, that are entrepreneurs, that do have success and have achieved greatness within their life. And I think that,
Mhm.
that's an unbelievable asset for people to have.
Do you like doing it? You like podcasting?
Oh, it's the greatest thing
Isn't it?
that's ever happened in my career. It truly is. It's connecting with people like you, Nina. Connecting with, we have some mutual friends that we've talked to, Nate Palmer. There's
Oh,
amazing
love
people
him.
out
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and the what inspires me is just hearing other people's story of success in the face of adversity. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I relate to it and I learn from it. And yeah, it's something that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, and you know what I love about all of that is, and you prefaced it by saying, "I'm not passionate about it, so I'm not gonna waste my time on it."
Yeah.
That is so powerful, Ryan, because that, gives us all like a pause. Hold on a second. Am I doing what I love to do? You know what I mean? Like, should I be wasting my time on this? And that
Yeah.
happens to a lot of people, right? You get stuck. And it's funny enough, that's what my message is going to be about today is getting unstuck. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit before we wrap it up about
Yeah.
how you are, today. How are you doing? Because I think are you still doing athletic stuff? Are you still working out? Like, what's that part of your life looking like?
Yeah. So I like to consider myself an athlete. I don't know that I truly am, but one of the things that I think is really important for anyone, not anyone that just has a medical condition, but I really believe that fueling your body is one of the most important things you could do to be successful in any aspect of your life.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's harder for certain people, but one of the things that's important to me, I decided I was actually fortunate enough with cystic fibrosis. It was 3 years ago now that they started to do these medications that actually change the genes within your body.
Mm.
So it flipped. Cystic fibrosis, in a nutshell, is the eighth chromosome in your DNA is mutated. So their medication that recently came out actually like fixes the mutation in your chromosome. And I was fortunate enough to get on this medication back in 2019, I think it was 20. Yeah, no, so I'm sorry, 2020, early
Mhm.
2020, 2 years ago, and it allowed me to go from 35% lung function because it's a chronic condition where your lungs deteriorate over time. So I went from
Mm.
70 down to 35, which is when you start talking about lung transplant.
Mm.
And I went from 35% to 70% or 65%, which is right where I was
Wow.
like 18 years ago, within 3 weeks. It was amazing. It
Wow.
was a life changing uh, uh, drug for me. And I told myself, I've been so fortunate to get this opportunity. I want to raise some money for the foundation that supported the research. And I wanted to do something that would prove to the world that you could do anything, no matter how difficult it was going to be.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
the second that I went on the medication and started feeling better, I said, what's the one thing that would be really hard for someone with a lung disease? Running. It just seemed like, endurance running. It seemed hard.
Yeah.
And I hate running. I still hate
Yeah.
running. So I decided at that point that I was going to run an ultra marathon. I was going to run a 50-kilometer ultra marathon to raise money for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation.
That's kinda
And
taking it too far, isn't it, Ryan?
it's
For
funny.
somebody who
My
hates
wife was like,
running, why
"What?"
not just a 5K? What is wrong with you?
I know. She's like, "What are you gonna do?" And I was like, "I'm gonna run an ultra marathon." She's like, "Not a marathon?" And I was like, "No, because I want people to know that there's more. Like, there's
Right.
more. A lot of people have run a marathon, but only 70,000 people every year run ultra marathons. So there's 70,000 people in the world living with
Wow.
cystic fibrosis, and 70,000 people in the world a year run an ultra marathon. So each feat is equally rare. So I said, okay, 50 kilometers, it's 31 point something miles. I'm going to run an ultra marathon. I signed up for it. I trained for 9 months. And sure enough, what was going on in 2020? COVID.
Um,
So the race was
they're
canceled.
canceled.
But I
Ah.
said, you know what? I've raised over $5,000 for the foundation. I've trained. I've ran over 1,000 miles training for this race. I'm going out there. I'm running it on the course on the day of the race alone with no one there, no crowd, no ticker tape parade. I'm just going to go out and run 50 kilometers, and I'm going to have
Wow.
my wife and family available to bring me water and food if I need it. But I'm doing it. And I went out and I ran a 50-kilometer ultra marathon with 65% lung function in 6 hours and 36 minutes. And it,
Ooh.
it was such an achievement for me. It
Wow.
brought me to tears at the end of it. And just knowing that I was able to accomplish something so rare as a physical feat as
Right.
the condition that I was afflicted with, it was powerful. It was powerful. And it goes to show that it doesn't matter, what you're fighting. Like success and greatness is
That's so
possible. You just
good.
have to
That's
figure
so
out the
good.
blueprint, to make it happen.
Yeah. Wow, Ryan, that's so inspirational. Holy cow, I can't believe that. That is wow. So are you still right now at that higher lung function
Yeah, so
in
I'm still
2021?
near that function of 65%.
Awesome.
And I'm still, I attribute it to the medication partly, but I
Yeah.
also attribute it to, having a mindset and a mentality that it's something that you got to fight every day. And
Right.
it goes back to like fighting every single day and the small
Right.
step. And the one thing that you learn when you run an ultra marathon is you're going to have ups and downs.
Right.
And when you hit those downs, you have to keep moving forward. Like you
Right.
can't
Right.
stop. The last thing you want to do is sit down in a car and because you're not going to get back up. So you have to
Right.
keep moving and you have to force yourself to keep moving. And you have to take it one step at a time. And
Oh, that's
31
amazing.
miles is all just one step at a time over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah,
For
it's a
6
it's a
hours.
powerful mentality. So I know, right? So I
Wow.
still feel like every single day, like I woke up this morning and I worked out because
Right.
if I don't, the world's just going to pass you by at some point.
Right.
So you
Wow,
got to
that's
keep going.
amazing.
Yeah.
Now, how old are your boys?
So I have two boys who are 9 and 6. Yep,
9 and 6, and they're watching, Ryan. They're watching,
they
right?
are.
They
They
are. This
are.
is a
Yeah.
good impact in their life. I mean, talk about not being able to give you excuses, huh?
I know. I know. And they do the funniest things too. Like I know one of them came home with over Christmas, they were supposed to write something they were thankful for on a Christmas tree, and he one of the I forget which one it was came home and he just wrote, "I'm thankful for doctors," and he showed it to me,
Mm,
and I was like, "Oh, why are you thankful for doctors?" And he said, "Well, because you're healthy because of the doctors," and
mhm.
it's that little bit of humility you have too when the kids
Yeah.
come home and that yeah they're watching you and you're doing this for a
Oh, yeah.
reason and you want to be a good example.
Yeah, well, I think you're a great example, Ryan. It's such a pleasure to meet you and have you on Straight Talk for sure. I'm gonna wrap it up because I could talk to you all day, but I wanted to know, like, if people wanted to, like, follow you, maybe even like donate to the cause that you're raising money for, if you're still raising money for them and things like that. Like, how do people connect with you? Where's the best place?
Yeah, so there's two ways that I like to connect with people. I'm most active on Instagram. So at Every Breath Counts podcast is my
I
Instagram
love that.
handle. And look, I wanna inspire and motivate the world. And if you are looking for some inspiration, I do a podcast, and it's a
Yeah,
weekly 1 hour interview with generally some sort of entrepreneur, athlete, someone that has achieved greatness in their life, and they kind of share their story and the strategies that they've had to accomplish the feats they've been able to accomplish. So anywhere you stream podcasts, if you're listening to this, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever it may be, it's on all of them. It's called Every Breath Counts podcast with Brian
that's
Shekell.
amazing. I absolutely love the name of your podcast. That is really, really, really good. Did you come up with that yourself?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
been a mantra.
I
It's
love it.
I just think that, you have to make every breath count in your life. And it goes
Yeah.
back to living one day at a time. Um, and it's interesting. I'll tell you one little story here before we end, because I think this is really important. You and I can talk, and we could say, "Oh, I've accomplished whatever," and Nina, you have this amazing podcast, and you're doing great. And people may be listening at any point and say, "Okay, well, that's all well and good. You reach some level of success." No, no. Like it's a struggle every single day, no matter
Yeah.
who you are, no matter what you're going through.
Mhm.
And I can tell you right now that I have a delusional optimist mindset. And I thought that I was going to be successful, no what. And I had the kids that I wanted to have. And I accomplished the career goals that I wanted to have. And I've moved on to this podcast. And okay, that's great. And that's part of that mindset. But you know what? I got that mindset from my dad in a lot of ways.
Mm,
And right around 30, my dad was diagnosed with brain cancer, and
mm,
he had a very similar mindset. And he said, "I'm going to beat this, and I'm going to live, and I'm not going to write my own eulogy, and this isn't going to defeat me." And you know what? He died within 6 months. It's
mm.
not important. that you have the mindset to be successful and to survive and to flourish, because sometimes there's things in life that are going to beat you.
Yeah.
The most important thing is that you live every day as if you are going to be great, as if you're going to be successful, as if you're going to flourish and have the greatest life you can
Yeah.
possibly have.
Yeah.
And if you can lay your head down at the end of every day and say, you know what, I did my best today. I put in every ounce of effort. I may not wake up tomorrow. That's what's important. And
That's
that's what
right.
the delusional optimist mindset is about.
Yeah.
Believing that
I love
success
it.
is inevitable, understanding that a lot of the time it may not be.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. You just go ahead and grab a mic and just drop it, Ryan. That's how
Bang.
you gotta drop it. Thank you so much for being and spending this time with me, Ryan. Honestly, this was amazing. Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
it was my pleasure, Nina. Thank you so much for having me.
So much fun. Guys, thank you guys so much for listening and being here. Please go ahead and follow Every Breath Counts podcast. I mean, I'm going to subscribe right now as soon as we get off of this call. I'm going to make sure that link all of his information below. That way you can follow him on Instagram. Go ahead and listen to his podcast. Be inspired. That's what this is about, right? For us and others to use their stories to inspire you, because there's no need for you to be stuck. There's no need to be in a place where you don't want to be. There's a way to move. And so we want to help you with that. So thank you guys for being here. This is Neena Perez. Make sure you smash that like button. Until next time.
Broadcast is brought to you by Wincheck Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.